after the Manipur and Malda horror atrocities against women have taken the state of Rajasthan too. Now, stripping and parading and filming the women have become a new horror trend. As per reports, a 21-year-old tribal pregnant woman was paraded naked in front of the whole village by no other than her husband. Her in-laws and neighbors, the woman has filed a complaint against 10 people who are involved in this horror. The complaint alleges that they forcibly took her on a motorcycle and paraded her naked. And after the video went viral, Rajasthan police have now arrested 8 people. Those arrested include the husband of the victim, Kanha Gameti, and Nitya Benia and Pintu, as well as a minor who has been accused in this horrific crime. While the police have also apprehended Punya, Ketia and Motilal, who were spectators of this hideous and heinous crime. We'll talk about this, what's happening in the country, why are we not having strict deterrence to discourage such behavior is the big question. These reports keep coming in from here and there. We saw something similar in Manipur just a few months ago that rocked and shocked the entire nation's conscience. What's happening in Rajasthan is again a disturbing trend which needs to be tackled and has to be tackled by the full might and the force of the law. IPS PK Jain, former DGP Mumbai, joins us on the show. Advocate KV Dhananjay, senior lawyer, Supreme Court activist, also joins us on the show. Tahira Hassan, women rights activist, with us on the program. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Sandeep Chatra, human rights defender, who's also with us on the platform. Tahira ji, I'll begin with you, if you can hear me. Tahira ji?
Can hear you.
Tahira ji, what is going on over here? You know, these are no strangers who have done this to a woman. It's her own husband and in-laws who were involved in this heinous act of stripping this lady who was pregnant and parading her naked. Where are these people getting these ideas from, and why are they still out of jail? They should be behind bars. There should be a strict punishment, a strict deterrent that, every time you think of something like this or belittling the modesty of a woman, you should shudder. Why aren't we doing the basic that our civilization and society is in need of at this time? We can go to the moon, we can go to the sun, but how about the problems on earth?
This such type of people have no place in a civilized society. They must be put behind the bar. The first thing is these type of incidents, whether it was in Manipur or now in Rajasthan, it has crossed all the limits of inhumanity towards women. It's a very shameful, barbaric, inhuman act. And it is repeated again and again because there is no fear of law. Again and again say, this conviction rate is low and we have very strong laws in our hand. We have Domestic Violence Act 2005. But why they are not implemented properly? And it is a new trend, to humiliate women by stripping her, parading her naked. I mean, these things are disgusting, and very painful to see these scenes again and again in 21st century for at least the women rights activists, because it is our struggle that we got these laws made, like a Domestic Violence Act, sexual harassment at workplace, sexual harassment. After Nirbhaya, the very strong law is in our hand. Justice Verma Committee was constituted and we have very, very strong law. The redressal of such cases should be fast-track court. Immediately these type of people must be arrested. As I have come to know, the Rajasthan police have arrested 7 people and 4 are detained. But immediately the action must be taken against them. Redressal of such cases within the 3 months. So the witness will not get hostile. And these type people will not get away after committing heinous crime. And the people should stop taking women as a commodity. The crime against the women must be taken seriously. And it's a very disturbing trend to humiliate the women by stripping and parading her naked. Strict action must be taken. Stringent punishment is needed. Absolutely. And we have laws. Those laws should be implemented on the ground properly. Then only we can stop this type of crimes, you can say heinous crimes against the women.
Mr. Chatra, I hope you can hear me. Mr. Chatra?
Yes, I can.
Well,
Thank you.
the trend is, the graph and the curve is, here we are talking about this today. The chief minister, the bureaucrats, the police are going to issue statements. They're going to give you a long laundry list of the action that has been taken. This person has been arrested, that person has been arrested, and then this matter is going to be shoved under the carpet. And we get to wait for another episode as such to come about and again talk about it. What I understand from this repetitive behavior on behalf of certain people is that the law is not exercising its full might when it comes to a deterrence that needs to be created before you even think about violating a woman's modesty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. And just to say, and I continue from Tahira ji, the previous speaker. You see, this incident, this disgusting incident actually, just is in a series of things which have been happening, but these only indicate how deeply embedded patriarchal values, हम उसको हिंदी में पितृसत्ता बोलते हैं, how deeply embedded patriarchal values are in our society. So laws can do, as Tahira ji was speaking, laws are there. I mean, she spoke to those laws. I'm not going to repeat each of those. But how they are implemented, what kind of social values we have, how deeply embedded those patriarchal values are in our social attitudes, in our societal mindsets, this is just a display of that, a macabre display of that, if I may say. Now, if you look at data on crimes against women, and that should worry us all, crimes against women, as per the National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB data, they have been growing. The last 21 the year 2021 data tells us that they grew by 15.3% over the previous year. That's a trend. And as we know, a lot of those cases, so that's just an indicator, let me put it. As we know, a lot of those cases are not even reported, or even if they are reported, are not registered. So the reality might be much more adverse and would be much more adverse. If I go by the World Health Organization data on behalf of the UN, they had done a global survey, and they reported that about 30% of the women globally, so this is not just an Indian trend, by the way, 30% of women globally have faced intimate partner violence or, external sexual violence. So it's about 30% of about 800 million women worldwide. So it is indeed worrying. And as you were mentioning to Tahira ji, you see the highest, as far as Indian data is concerned, the highest number of cases are those of actually violence by partners and his relatives. This is one such instance here, the one we are talking about today. And then, of course, the number of assaults and against women and rape cases are also growing. And often I hear in newspapers that comparisons are made among states, and I don't think we should get there because yes, some states have stopped that list for some years, another set of states stopped that list for another set of years. In this case, Rajasthan is very high in the number of reported cases on rapes. But if you look at overall violence against women, it's Uttar Pradesh, Assam, so many other states. So I don't think in this hall of shame we should get in the way, as I see the popular media doing, in comparing which state has done better or worse. I think they are all largely in a hall of shame as far as this count is concerned, crimes against women are concerned. I think that's where we stand today, Viniji. I think it is in this context, what really is needed is protection. First of all, the first step, what this horror should face us. I have been on your shows in past weeks and over the past year on these kind of incidents in different states. But what it should force us as a state, as a set of states, and as society is to ensure that survivors of such violence, first and foremost, that's our duty, a national duty. The survivors are protected. The survivors, sort of protection pathways are ensured. They are given a pathway to flourish their future as we go down the line. Often they are forgotten very quickly, and the media reports go away. They go back to their lonely lives. The criminals are brought to justice. There should be no delay. In this instance, the police, of course, now apprehended the criminals and the bystanders. That's another point I'll come to later. But the other the issue that I really want to come to, I think nationally, we do need a big social campaign against patriarchy, frontally against patriarchy, a campaign which celebrates the role of women, which celebrates the contribution of women, recognizes the centrality of women in our societies, You see, the point, the path that we need to traverse on, Vinitji, is from saving daughters to empowering daughters, from saving women to empowering women. I think that is the trajectory as a society we must carry on. And the last point I wish to make is of the bystanders here. We see greater tendencies. Of course, these come in the media. I saw some reports from Madhya Pradesh the other day. But I see greater tendencies actually of people standing there and taking videos, the bystanders to these horrible, disgusting events. So I think that's another phenomenon socially we need to sort of look into, and we need to address the bystander effect, if I may call it. Many social organizations are actually now working to ensure bystanders do not become just bystanders, passively standing there, celebrating, or just standing there, but actually become the first responders. So that's another arena of action as a society and state we need to have going ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great points there, Mr. Chachra. Advocate KV Dhananjay also with us on the program. Advocate Dhananjay, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can, sir.
Well, what do you make of the situation? When is the Good Samaritan law in India that was passed by the Supreme Court in 2016 actually propel and encourage people to not allow such demeaning, such debauchery to take place in our country? I'm not going to get into which state does what. If this has happened in Rajasthan, to me it has happened in India, regardless of the state. Yeah. I'm not going to look at Mr. Gehlot. I'm not going to look at our Prime Minister. I'm going to look at the system of law and policing and deterrence which is in place right now. It doesn't seem to be working.
Yes, and that's the most important realization we must take from events like this, that our laws don't seem to be working well enough. And the solution to that is to not make even harsher laws. But the laws are harsh enough. It is just that we don't have the political will to enforce it in a meaningful way. Now, if you look into this episode even more closely, what you will find is the sense of property the perpetrators had about the women in question. Now, we do know that this was actually a case of a scheduled tribe. This was a family that is designated as a scheduled tribe. And we've seen more of such instances like this across the country. So sometimes we might have to ask ourselves, is it possible that, we have excluded the scheduled tribes from the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955? We make it difficult for scheduled tribe women to obtain a divorce and then to obtain certain other benefits that Hindu women can obtain under that law. And so it becomes really very difficult for women who want to simply divorce. We have to sometimes hypothesize in this case. And what if that woman in this case wanted to divorce her husband? But then she did visit a lawyer, and then the lawyer might have said, look, the divorce in this scheduled tribes is not going to be easy because you've been kept out of the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. And there are these scheduled tribe customs, and the scheduled tribe customs, disfavor women. So you will have to continue with this wedlock for quite some time. If that was the kind of advice a lawyer gave, and then she was no longer able to, live with her married husband, and then she went away, then maybe the lesson we can take from this is that we, have this, the reforms that are coming. So we will have to modify our Hindu Marriage Act also to say that scheduled tribes will in fact automatically fall within it. Now, as a lawyer, I should have started this by saying that we all should hang our head in shame. Something like this is happening in the year 2023. As you rightly said, it just does not matter if this is Rajasthan, Manipur, Karnataka, or anywhere else. Wherever it happens, this is on Indian soil, and we all take collective responsibility for the fact that something like this has happened. Not that we bear collective responsibility, we will take responsibility to provide a solution. And obviously, it would be difficult for all the community to take a blame for this. It's not the society that must be taking a blame. It is the people that, in fact, have sworn to enforce the laws, but who don't seem to be doing enough. Now, there is a CST Act in Rajasthan, and that law, it is really very difficult for the perpetrators in this case to obtain bail. So it's important for the media to follow up on a case like this. Now, all that the media unfortunately does most of the time is to provide a forum for outrage. But
the other big question also comes about, IPS PK Jain is also joining us. He's a former DGP of Mumbai. Mr. Jain, if you're there with us, sir.
Yeah, namaskar.
Namaskar, sir. Sir, the big question here is that does a case need to be highlighted by the media for the victims to get justice? Because this one has been, I'm sure, I'm very positive, there are a plethora of cases which don't get to be talked about the media. What happens there, and what kind of motivation are we giving to our police as well when it comes to letting people know that you have to abide by the law, otherwise there will be repercussions?
See, I have no idea. The only thing that I could see in the news item was that the police was approached. Police came to know from the social media itself. There was no complaint per se. If there was a complaint earlier and no action was taken on that complaint, then I think the concerned police officer is guilty, and a exemplary punishment should be meted out to him so that it sends the message down the line. But unfortunately, it is more of a rule than exception that the FIRs are not being registered in the police stations the way they ought to be done, because it increases the work of the police. They are already overburdened. That is not an excuse, but that is the fact of life, that the FIRs cannot be registered even in a city like Mumbai unless you have a very strong case or unless you approach some senior officer or a big wig. So in this case, in a village, in a tribal family, if this kind of an incident takes place, most of the time the police will shoo them away. But I think somewhere the responsibility lies on the officers, the senior officers, who have to, keep their junior officers properly briefed and tell them what the consequences of this kind of action are, both socially and legally. And then, if the things don't fall in place, then take disciplinary action against the concerned officers. I can assure you of one thing from my 35 years of experience, is that if a senior officer means business, and if he wants to control crime, and if he does not want things like this to happen, these things will not happen, because the juniors down the line do understand the language and the intention of the officer sitting at the helm of the affairs, that is the superintendent of police or maybe the commissioner of police. So that message has to be sent very strictly down the line that, see, incidents of this nature may not be prevented, but once they happen, proper legal action should be taken. That is at least expected out of the police, the local police. If that is not taken, then we are failing the society as a force. We are failing the society, the very society whom we are supposed to protect. So I'm very clear about these concepts, that if the senior officers mean business, the offences will be registered, action will be taken, proper investigation will be done, and the investigation will be taken to its logical conclusion. It is only when there's somewhere the things start cracking in between the supervision and the actual action on the ground, that incidents like this happen and FIRs are not being registered. So absolutely, I think one has to find out as to when the case was reported to the police and what action was taken immediately. Even without conducting a preliminary inquiry in a case of this nature, offense should be registered first, investigation must be launched, and then we must look into the other factors, whether it was a true FIR or a false FIR. We are nobody to judge right in the beginning whether the FIR was false or it is not meant to be registered or it is meant to harass somebody. We must take legal action as per our law and as per various judgments of the various high courts and Supreme Court.
All right, okay. Tahira ji, well, we really don't know whether this was, a crime of passion, or were these people, certifiably insane. All we know, or perhaps that we can deduce out of the situation, is, Tahira ji, that this sense of patriarchy has led to a lot of people, cause problems for women and humiliate and admonish and rebuke them in such ways. This is something which also has to be corrected at the ground level in terms of education, sensitization.
Of course, the sensitization program must be launched. Patriarchy is very deep rooted in our society. When the woman is raped, then that time the accused, nobody is going to say anything to rapist. The people say that, this woman, women's dress code, her lifestyle, her food habit, these things are criticized. Patriarchy makes the guideline, and that controls the women's sexuality. Women, good women, bad women. Good women who obey the patriarchal rule, and they work 10 to 5 because they want money also, economic gain also. So if the women are going to work only 10 to 5, so okay. But they should not take head-on to men. They should not work in the fields where the men are working. Otherwise, they are the, bad women. Like we have seen in the Beha case, people were asking questions. Tall leaders were also asking questions what she was doing with her boyfriend in night. If the women will go, with the boyfriend, if the girl will go with the boyfriend, she'll be raped. It's a kind of weapon in the hand of patriarchy to teach lesson to women. So these are the things we must take head on, must fight against it. Women are fighting against it. Our young generation is fighting against it. But thing is this, we have got the laws made, they should be implemented. The woman is crying in the video. It's the video that has been surfaced. She's crying. She's screaming for the help. Nobody is going to help her. I think that thing could be more degrading than parading women naked. How can you justify this? The action must be taken, and next time these type of incident should not repeat. The head of all the state must take oath, and they must take action towards it. Because, these are humiliating as a new trend to humiliate women. It's a new trend.
Right.
To assault on women's dignity.
Okay.
So I think the strict.
Let me take a quick response from Mrs. Sandeep Chatra as well.
We have very strong laws with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Those laws must be implemented. Increase the conviction rate. These type of incident can be curbed.
Absolutely. And Mr. Chatra, the application of the law and these crimes is very, very similar to the idiom about, the distance of the cup from the lips.
Sure, and I think the fight, and I want to sort of summarize what I want to say, the fight is actually to liberate women's bodies and women's futures from...
Do you think patriarchy is also at work here, Mr. Chatra?
Yes, absolutely.
Deep-rooted?
Yes, very deep, and the fight is to liberate women's bodies, women's futures from the clutches of patriarchy. And that is why we need a social campaign on that. That's something I'd like to say. My second point is, this is not just about laws. I think a lot of social reform in this arena is needed. And I would suggest that, Gram Sabhas pass resolutions and be held accountable. So it's not just top down. It is also how democratized we do these actions. So Gram Sabha resolutions must happen. Working on the ground, those are important things. Gram Sabhas must resolve and be held accountable for any such, I'm not talking of these macabre incidents, but any, sort of assault on women, any degradation of women, women's bodies, and, women are treated as property in capitalism. And I think we should sort of think that through very carefully as to what we want to do, how we want to ensure that capitalism and patriarchy, that integral link that they have, do not see a future in the years to come, in the century we are in. That is something which is essential to human rights. That is something that is essential to women's rights. Otherwise, what the Secretary General of UN says will continue to be said later years as well. He said recently that it will take 300 more years for the woman to reach the level of freedom and equality that we all desire for in the world. But I'm afraid the way we are going globally and even socially, we're going to be sort of waiting another 100 years to make the same statement again.
Absolutely.
So I think urgent action is needed, Vinitji, and the action must start from the ground. Action must start from our social institutions. Action must start from our schools. Action must start from our Gram Sabhas. Action must start from the development administration on the ground, as the Honorable IG was saying earlier on. It must start with the local police thanas and police stations. It must start to make sure that the bystanders just don't stand there and clap and record videos, but are brought to book and actually turn to first responders. Thank you, Vinitji.
Absolutely. Mr. Dhananjay, quick closing thoughts from you, and Mr. Jain, 30 seconds each, and then we wrap up. Solutions to this problem?
Well, I think the solution, God knows. What certainly the media can do is to follow up on it. And, this concept of breaking news, I think we should do away with it. What happened to something that actually stirred much outrage 3 months ago? Perhaps because media does have it, most of the national media does have immense resources at its disposal. They can follow up on some cases as an illustration and then tell the people as to what's happening. With the police here in this case, okay, they will file an FIR and then the people in fact will be arrested. They will spend behind bars for 2 or 3 months. They'll get bail, and then what happens? Probably there won't even be a charge sheet filed in this case for years together. So we certainly have had an event like this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. What's become of that?
Nothing.
So I think,
that's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah,
All we do is we get to talk about it the other
yes.
the other day.
If some light is shed on, what went, how many achievements were taken.
It's only deterrence, right? It's only deterrence, Mr. Jain, that can instill that fear of the law in people. And we are living in a world of social media. This is not India from 20 years ago. Everything you do, it can be captured and circulated and made viral. But still, people have the spunk and the stomach to go about, violating the modesty of women like this.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Chachara also has made this point. Education and enforcement have to both go hand in hand. We must start the education process of education from the family itself, family, then social environment. Then the enforcement part also comes, and enforcement also should be exemplary. There's no space for this kind of an incident in a civilized society like ours. And if at all somebody does behave and take law into their own hands, I think the exemplary and very the worst kind of punishment should be meted out to them. That's the only thing I can say. As a police officer, I know my limitations, the limitations of the police, because
Absolutely.
eventually they catch hold of the accused, put him up in the court, he's bailed out, again is free to do similar kind of crimes or even worse. So the police have their own limitations.
And I think so.
but
The police always get the raw end of every situation. They are not
Yeah,
praised
that's
enough.
it,
They're not praised enough for the things that they do and achieve, but they're usually admonished and rebuked and criticized for the slip-ups that happen. And of course, a lot of these slip-ups have to do with the societal arrangement that we live in today. We've run out of time, but it's been a great discussion. Hope something comes of it.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.